Bharti is under pressure, so that one is down about 1-odd%. As Reema was also pointing out earlier, this time around it's not just that Bharti's numbers are weak, but compared to Idea that did a volume growth of 5.1%, Bharti's growth at 1.36% is extremely paltry. So as you can see, there's a diverse move that we're seeing. But on that note, Anush, thanks for joining us and talking about the markets. Let's talk a little bit in detail about Bharti's numbers. Suresh Mahadevan, MD of and Head of Asia Telecom and Media Research at UBS joins us now. Suresh, hi, good morning. Good to see you in as always. It's been a starkly diverse performance as far as volume growth is concerned between the two telecom players, Bharti and Idea. How would you approach Bharti now after its numbers?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show and good morning. See, I think, look, Bharti's performance has been a little impacted by Africa, certainly, where there is some currency issues. But, if you stick to India, I think they've done a good job. My sense is, if you look at India mobile in particular, I think revenues have grown roughly, 13% year on year, 23% EBITDA growth, which is pretty good. EBITDA margins have expanded. So my sense is, obviously data has been the big hero, I would say, for both Bharti and Idea. So I think, the data growth in India is real. It's there for everybody to see. I think my own sense is the market is quite concerned about the upcoming auctions. It's concerned about RGO. That's why the EBITDA improvement does not translate into stock price performance. But, these are events which, post the events, I think the stock could re-rate significantly if the events go the way at least we are hypothesizing.
No, EBITDA at 21.9 is per se not bad, but it is the lowest we have seen since Bharti acquired the African business, isn't it, Suresh?
No. Oh, okay. No, I'm talking about the Indian mobile business. Right. There is no doubt that Africa has been poor. But, frankly, if you ask me, Africa has been poor partly due to currency, partly due to some Ebola type stuff, which has impacted roaming. And partly also, Bharti Airtel had underestimated the challenges. They've got a new CEO who is cleaning up the stuff. So, but my sense on Bharti is, nobody gives it a positive value. I think we take 25 rupees per share negative for Bharti Africa. Maybe that number has to be higher, I don't know. But my sense is, it's not like high expectations are built into the business. What I talked about when I said 23% growth was, if you look at Indian mobile business EBITDA, on a year-on-year basis has grown 23%. How many businesses in India can you find with that kind of growth?
Fair. Okay.
It's difficult.
Okay. If you take a look at the stock performance of both Bharti and Idea in the last 6 months, Suresh, it's gone nowhere. Both those stocks have been extremely range-bound. It could be perhaps because of some concerns, as you mentioned, about the upcoming auctions or RelGeo. But nevertheless, what do you think is hindering the performance of the stocks itself? And what do you forecast as the next 6 months for these two stocks?
See, if you look at the last, let's say, 7-8 quarters, okay, EBITDA margins for both Bharti and Idea have expanded anywhere from 700 to 800 basis points. This is a serious trend here, right? And obviously, this is largely driven by data. And of course, there is some pricing power as well. But, that is something you can't, ignore. Of course, the market is ignoring, and I'll come to that. The second thing is, if you look at the next 6 months or 1 year, the data growth is not going to stop. We still have maybe, 120, 130 million data users in India who all consume maybe 350 to 400 MB a month. And this is a country where outside the big cities, there is no real fixed line. So I'm assuming data, you could potentially see this 130, 140 million users go to 500, 600 million in the next 5 years. So that is a big upside, right? Which that's a big expansion in the revenue pie, which both Bharti and Idea, I'm sure, will take advantage of. Coming to the concerns, I think auctions, frankly, are not a concern. It's not very different from an excise duty hike in India, right? If government wants more money for spectrum, let them have it, but it's a transfer. You have to transfer it to the consumer. The second thing is RGO. I have covered regional telcos now for 12 years. I am yet to come across anything in Asia or anywhere in the world where an operator enters 20 years later and grabs a vast chunk of market share. I mean, I'm not saying it is impossible, but the odds are very heavily stacked against such a move. So,
okay. Well, in that case, you have a buy on both stocks?
yeah, we like both here. We think, obviously, Idea is a pure play on Indian mobile market. Bharti, unfortunately, is getting a little impacted by Africa. But there is another point I would like to make, which is if you look at Bharti Infratel, which has done extremely well, right? When the stock is up, I don't know, 130% in the last 12 months. I mean, Bharti owns 75% of this company. Bharti stock hasn't even moved the same way, the same proportion to how much Infratel has moved. So I think the market obviously is mispricing these, according to me.
Okay. Well, one final question, and I'm keeping it as last because I guess it's marginal. What's this payments bank going to do to both these entities? Assuming they get it, how much money is involved and what returns will come in how many years? Anything at all to the EPS, or is it going to be too marginal?
I think, it's a bit premature, but if you think about it, right, RBI and the government wants to, really practice financial inclusion.
Yes.
And it's a very well-known fact that maybe a vast majority of Indian population don't have bank accounts. So Aadhaar push, everything is towards that, right? So I think the telcos, if you see the good thing about them, right, if you take Bharti, they have 220 million real people they are connected to. Now, connected to on a 24/7. So could that be leveraged to do some banking stuff? Of course, yes. But what is the business model, etc.? We'll have to wait and see. But I think one thing I would add here, if the government is serious about this stuff, I mean, they have to release a lot more spectrum. They cannot just maximize government revenues on spectrum auctions. In fact, that is one thing why the stocks haven't done well. Because post the government change, unfortunately, nothing has changed for the sector. Whereas it should have. Because, so I think that's one thing, if especially the government wants to push digital India, etc., they have to address the spectrum situation. They can't just look at these companies as ATMs, machines to balance the fiscal deficit. They have to enable the sector to deliver technology to the masses of India. And I think it'll eventually happen. So far, the progress is very disappointing, despite having a very good regulator in TRAI.
All right, Suresh, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for joining us. Can you give us your disclosures, please?
I don't own any of these names. I only write research on these names.
All right, fair enough. You have a good day. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.